Hey, what's going on, everyone? AutoFull Gaming here. Welcome back to the channel. Today we figured we'd take a look at a case sent over from Raijintek. This is their new Ophion. It's an all-aluminum Mini Itx chassis. I'll be doing a build in this today, checking out some thermals and just some of the features of the case. We don't do a whole lot of Mini Itx stuff, but actually I'm a pretty big fan of small form factor builds. We previously worked with one in the past from Novelo, their stack, and we're actually going to be borrowing some parts out of it today. Because like I said, that's the only Mini Itx system I have going right now. So we're actually gonna kind of borrow some parts out of that. Maybe throw our 2070 in there, our 2070 Super in there just for kicks and see what that looks like. So let's go ahead and unbox this guy. We'll take a look at some close-ups as well. Very heavy for a Mini Itx case. I guess considering it's all aluminum, that's to be expected. Pull it out of its foam here. It's packed with that very dense foam material, so definitely good packaging there. And we'll put this back in here and then get this out of the way. All right, so looking around the, let's see, I guess this would be the front of the chassis here. Here's the motherboard support. Like I said, it's a tempered glass on both sides. With a decent little gap in between for some airflow, like I said, around all the edges here, so it is an open chassis style system. There is a magnetic dust filter here up top, as well as a smaller one down bottom, because that's actually where the looks like you have one more intake there for the where the CPU would be, or the CPU cooler would be on the motherboard. Looks like this can actually fit what looks like small form factor. No, that may even be full-size ATX. We'll have to check that out once we get the other power supply in here. Like I said, first time taking a look at this. We posted a few pictures on the Instagram, but like I said, really haven't had a chance to dive into it yet. So if you guys do want to see some, usually some early updates before they make it to YouTube, check us out on Instagram over at AutoFull Gaming, which like I said, another dust filter down here. Looks like there's room to add maybe a slim fan there, right above where the CPU would be. And if we go and take all four screws off here, we're going to take this front tempered glass off. That's it. It has a Raijintek logo kind of embossed into it there, into the glass. So we'll just lift this off out of the way. Set that to the side. Like I said, it looks like this is actually the, oh no, this is actually the back side. Looks like, yeah, this is where, no, this is front side. Okay, yeah. So the motherboard mounts are on this side, and it's a kind of a split chassis system. So the actual card is installed back here. Yeah, because there's the cutouts for that. So going back around here to the front, looks like we have a few things sticking out here. We'll get some close-ups of this as well. Looks like we have our USB 3 and front panel connectors, as well as the power supply pass through there. Because like I said, you will be passing it through to the back side of the case, as well as looks like a pre-installed ribbon, PCIe ribbon cable. Because like I said, the GPU does go on the other side, so you do have to pass this underneath the kind of motherboard mount here to the other side to plug back in your motherboard, because the GPU is sitting on the reverse side. So looking at the front here, pretty minimal I/O. Like I said, just have the power button. It's pretty clicky. So it looks like there's some illumination there around that. Looks like to be anyway. Yeah, there's a header for it. And then on the front here, looks like there's a USB 3 and USB Type-C, but looks like there's only a USB 3 connector, so I'm assuming it's splitting off. So whereas the front will have Type-C connector, you're not going to be getting Type-C speeds, which, I mean, that's a bit of a bummer, but like I said, not many, I mean, unless you're going to be using a whole lot of fast transfer, maybe storage devices or anything like that that are Type-C to Type-C, it's not a deal breaker for me. You know, so most people would look forward to, you know, having the just standard USB 3 for most of their devices or thumb drives or anything like that. And then that's pretty much it when it comes to I/O. It's got this nice brushed aluminum finish here. Looks like that kind of follows it all around. Very nicely rounded edges here. So it's a really solid looking case. Like I said, if we go to the back side here, like I said, this is where the pass-through is for that power supply cable here. And then you have the cutouts for the GPU. Looks like this will support maybe a 2-slot. Yeah, this got 2 slots here, so anything a 2-slot card. It's going to be a little weird fitting that 2070 Super in here, because it looks like while it is a 2 kind of 2.5 slot card because of the cooler that's on the 2070 Super. I just thought it'd be funny to put in here for giggles, but it'll probably get pretty close to this front tempered glass, so we'll see. Probably not the best for thermals if we do that. And then we have the cutout for the motherboard I/O here. So let's go ahead and take the other side off. It looks like we have some goodies in there. So we'll go and take this tempered glass side off. Like I said, this would be the back where the GPU sits. So go ahead and take this out of the way. Oh, and I guess while we're here, you guys can get a peel. We actually did the first one when we first kind of took this out of its box. We did the first one over on our Instagram. We did a peel of the other side, so we'll do the peel on this side now. There we go. And we'll lift this one off and set this down. We'll put the case on its back here. So it looks like in the bag we do have some goodies here. Looks like we have the instructions for the chassis, along with everything it includes. You get the VGA screws, some motherboard screws, some looks like some screws to mount some SSDs as well. It actually looks like the mounting for the SSDs on this one, if I'm not mistaken, are actually sitting. Let's see, it looks like you can go either up top with them, so it seems, using they have little kind of dugout ones, and we'll show some close-ups of that, as well as there's room behind, there's room behind the front plate here. So it looks like you actually have to take this front plate off where the power button and I/O are up front, because there's a gap back there. Yeah, because I can actually see the little holes now, and then we'll get some close-ups of that, but actually there's a gap on the other side of this little front plate here where you can mount, looks like one, maybe, yeah, it looks like just holes for one 2.5 SSD, because there's actually a cutout on this back side here, a cutout for your SATA power and data to come out of, looks like. So yeah, you do have some mounting there. Like I said, I'm pretty sure you can mount up top as well. Like I said, this is the regular Ophion. We actually were looking at this one and the Ophion, I believe it was the Evo, another one that Raijintek makes. That's actually their water cooler, or kind of AIO model one. This is just their standard Ophion. So with this one, there's no support for any kind of radiators up top or anything like that. You do have room for some 120 fans up top, just fine, but you're not going to be able to mount even the slimmest rad up here. If you do want to do that and water cool the CPU with, say, a 240 AO or something like that, you can check out the Evo edition. It's going to be a little taller and have room for that support. So finishing up on the back side here, since we got kind of distracted, looks like, as I said, we have the PCIe extension kind of riser cable going on the other side, and this is actually where you would plug the GPU in. So it's already kind of pre-installed to the case, kind of drilled into place there with its own standoffs. So you'd be mounting the card on this side, be facing out. Like I said, we are going to throw that 2070 Super in there of ours. Keep in mind, if you are looking in a form factor like this, since this one does have tempered glass, and like you will run into some issues if your card does stick out a good bit or has a larger cooler. You kind of need a little more space away from the glass to make sure you get good airflow, and we'll show some close-ups of how tight this is. What weird is that about this? Actually, the kit includes little rubber pads. So the idea behind this was to, I guess, help seal off from any kind of dust getting in around the edges, which does block a ton of airflow. So we're not going to be putting that on there. Just keep in mind that you do have the dust filter at the bottom, you do have the dust filter up top. But keep in mind, like I said, that you will get a little more dust in the case with it being an open chassis pretty much because of the way the tempered glass is set up. You do have that gap running all the way around that tempered glass on every side. So I guess they put these in mind for, I can't say for sound, because with the mounting positions we have here, we got maybe enough room for two 120s up top, maybe a slim 120 down bottom there, just one. So I can't see fans making that much noise. So I'm assuming it was for aesthetic purposes, just to have it kind of blacked out all the way around and no gap there, but we won't be using that. And then the rest of the bag here includes the mounting for the SSDs. Looks like some, looks like some mounts for the SSDs, some GPU screws as well. So I think that about covers the kind of wrap up of the case there with both side panels off. We went over everything. So let's actually go grab the stack. We're going to be pulling some parts out of that. We'll mount them in here, get it up and running, and then we'll be right back when I have the stack apart. All right, so I had to go grab my stack there. Like I said, we were going to be pulling some parts out of this guy today. Like I said, this was our current kind of HTPC in the living room. Not a crazy powerful system here. It's got a 3400G in it currently. And then we, like I said, just run the integrated graphics there. Plenty enough for all of our streaming needs in the living room. But like I said, it's the only Mini Itx build I had put together right now. We could throw our 3600X in there, because since we're going to be using a discrete graphics card. But I think, like I said, we just wanted to mainly test some thermals today. The 3400G and 3200G line is not very power soaked or anything like that. We do have one of Scythe's coolers sitting on top of it right now. Like I said, just using one of their kind of low profile air coolers on it, and then we have a 650 watt, again, kind of overkill, but a 650 watt Seasonic their Focus SFX power supply in here, as well as a little RGB strip, just to be able to tell if the PC is on or not, because it sits kind of underneath our entertainment center. Like I said, and again, on the back, normally for this one, you would have that spot for mounting the graphics card on this, but we're using integrated graphics in this. So we're transferring the board and everything over to this guy today, since we think it looks pretty classy. And then we'll do some testing and decide on which one we want it to live in, because we have a few kind of small form factor builds coming up. Like I said, we had the stack originally. Like I said, let me know down in the comments below if you guys want to kind of dive more into this. We haven't really touched on this on the YouTube channel. We did do some info on it all over on the Instagram if you guys want to check that out. But like I said, I haven't really done a video on it here as far as something super small form factor. One of the smallest kind of liter small form factor cases we work with. But we're moving on the parts over here, like I said, kind of doing some testing there, seeing how thermals are with the tempered glass, whereas this one does have kind of a perforated panel. So we'll see how the tempered glass affects some thermals there. And like I said, if that card, the 2070 Super Oris card we have there, can actually still breathe behind the tempered glass there. So we'll be checking that out. So again, probably not ideal. A mesh panel or some kind of perforated panel would be better on the GPU side. And that goes for this one as well. They make tempered glass for this one too. So we'll be transferring that over, but we do have one more. So if you guys do like small form factor systems, we have one more coming in. Novolo is actually sending over one of their Borg cases. So we'll probably end up transplanting that again after we test the Ophion out. So enough about Novolo. Like I said, the video is about Ophion today. So let's go ahead and disassemble this guy, and then we'll start moving some parts over. So let's go. Now that we've taken apart the puzzle, like I said, this is what'll be going into the Ophion there. Like I said, we got a 3400G under there with one of Scythe's low profile coolers here. Just running a, again, overkill for what we're doing with this one, but it's okay since these Vega GPUs built in do take advantage of some system memory. We actually have 16 gigs of some G-Skill. I believe it's 3200 on this kit. Got it a while back. Like I said, just built something really small and light, low power for living room streaming for all of our Netflix, Hulu, whatever we're going to be watching in the living room. Like I said, that's what this system is serving for. Like I said, we're running the stock cooler on this one for a little bit, but ended up throwing the Scythe cooler on just to be a little bit more quiet, and it did help some performance a little bit and just keeping it nice and quiet and cool. And then we just have a single M.2 here on the back, since there's no other storage here on the front. Like I said, we're just running everything off of a small Kingston M.2 on the back here, which typically is not the best place to put these since they can get a little warm, but like I said, again, this is so low powered, not going to make too much of a difference there. So we're going to set that down over here, just get that out of the way, and then we got to make sure we get the IO shield out here. Like I said, we really did like the Novolo case. Like I said, it's a little weird to build in when you're not used to something like this, because it's literally a kind of a puzzle you have to put together on yourself, because it does ship all separated, so you do get to put that together yourself. But once you do a couple times, it's fine. Like I said, no issues there. So we'll go ahead and kind of pop the IO shield out here. There we go, can't forget that. And then we'll do some cleanup of this stuff, set it to the side, and then we'll start working on the Ophion. All right, so now that we have that out of the way, so we can go and start kind of planning this guy out. Like I said, then we'll grab its bag of parts and hardware as well. Like I said, pretty much have every part ready to go. One more thing I do need to grab, since we're putting a discrete graphics card in this one, is some extra PCIe cables out of the box for this power supply. Because like I said, in the previous system with this guy currently installed, we were just running the integrated graphics. Let me grab those real quick. So I think we'll just stick with the M.2 that's on there now. Well, I guess we could probably go and pull a SATA just to see how it is to run, because I do have another SATA drive we could use. So let's go ahead and pull a SATA cable out as well. So we have our 8-pin EPS 24-pin motherboard cable, which again, this is also crazy to look at to see that they're only, this long, which is nice in these small form factor cases. Then we have the PCIe cable. We grab the SATA cable and the 8-pin EPS cable for the CPU. So we're going to pull those out, put everything else back in the box here. Now we can kind of start pre-planning how we're going to install everything into this guy. We'll need its hardware bag. Instead, we'll go and pull some instructions out too. Those are nice to have. Set that to the side. And like I said, I don't think we're going to be using these little foam inserts. Like I said, these things here, like I said, I think that's to go around the edges here, and I just don't want to do that. We just need these screws. If anything, we'll use this little baggie here for the Novelo stuff where we don't lose anything. So like I said, depending on how testing goes, we'll determine on what Mini Itx we decide to go with. Alright, so I guess first we can go about getting everything installed. How do they recommend going? Let's see if they give us any kind of step-by-step guide here. Not really. Like I said, they just I guess want you to take a stab at whatever you want. So we'll lay the instructions out there. Take a look at those if we need to. Sometimes you gotta RTFM. All right, it's a quick update. We don't have on hand an actual ATX power supply that will fit in this. That's not currently being used right now. I have another one that is a 1200 watt, but it is way too large for this case to have the cabling still come out still. So we did end up mounting the SFX unit we had in here, just with 2 screws instead of 4. We did do some digging. Raijintek does make an adapter plate to where you can still screw in all 4. It's just a plate that adapts to fit inside of this, so you can still use the SFX mounting. So currently we're just mounting with the 2 in here right now. So let's make sure that these are snug into place here. Which, I mean, this little power supply is pretty light, so I don't see that being much of an issue. It's pretty well in there. But like I said, we do make, or if you do still want to use an SFX unit with, if you're looking in a case like this, you'll just make sure you have to get the adapter plate for it, which is separate from the main kit. So let's continue on building. All right, so now we have all the cabling ran into the PSU. Like I said, the 24-pin, the 8-pin EPS, PCIe connector, and the SATA for, we'll test fit a SATA drive up front here since that's where the mounting position is. But like I said, that's all of that. So let's figure out how we want to wire this thing up now. Alright guys, so the build is complete. Jumped ahead there. Didn't want to bore you guys with all the boring parts of plugging everything in, but got everything in the case settled. We actually got some benchmarks pulled up here we're going to go over. We did a stress test of both the CPU and GPU just to test thermals in the case. Didn't really run any games because like I said, this is just the 3400G in here. While it's a decent processor, not really a good pairing with the 2070 Super, so we're mainly looking at thermal testing. So we'll first touch on that 3400G. We'll dive into some Cinebench R20 scores here. We did a 15-minute stress test run, just kind of letting it cycle through. And as you can see on the chart here, we actually hit a peak of around 73 or so C. Like I said, keep in mind that's with a pretty stealthy cooler from Scythe, as well as a very not high wattage TDP CPU here. So thermals might be an issue if you're trying to throw something in crazy powerful or higher TDP than what the 3400G is. Because like I said, we were idling around anywhere between about 40 C at idle and then got up to around 73 C after around 15 minutes or so. So it kind of gradually rose from around 40C up to 73C during the test. Like I said, it actually didn't manage to do that many passes while it was going because it's the 3400G. Again, not a crazy powerful CPU because we mainly use it for HTPC in the previous build it was in. But keep that in mind. I didn't mind testing the 3400G in this mainly because I wanted to test even, you know, kind of best case scenario on a CPU like this, because this is such a low wattage TDP part. You actually might run into some issues if you're trying to cool a higher TDP CPU, such as any of the regular 3000 series or even the new 5000 series in a case this size. So if you're planning on that, I would definitely recommend going with the Ophion Evo and then getting the, like I said, it's a taller one here. It comes with a 240 AIO, or it's mounting for a 240 AIO up top since it is a little bit taller. Now, again, we didn't add any extra fans for this. That would definitely help on both of these tests, more than likely, but we were trying to test the case in its stock configuration. There is room to mount two 120s up top here, and even a slim, and that's to be a pretty slim 120 at the bottom here below where the CPU cooler is. So that would definitely help kind of get air out of, hot air out of the case and then bring a little extra in, because the only really intake we have here right now is kind of what it can passively pull from the bottom that's open and then around the tempered glass here. All right, so let's dive into the benchmarks for the 2070 Super we did. Like I said, we did one of a superposition benchmark with this. We tested 1080p extreme, and this is stock settings. Let the card ramp naturally on its own. We started at around kind of around 50C or so at idle, with the card doing nothing, and then as we gradually went throughout the test, like I said, pretty much just did one run on here. We didn't want to push the card too much. As we suspected, the card is being choked off a good bit with being that close to the tempered glass side panel, so definitely if you're going for a form factor like this, I would definitely make sure that your card is a bit smaller. Like I said, this is a little more than a 2-slot card, so in this case it does put it really close to that front tempered glass, and as we know from even ATX form factor builds, ones that have built-in vertical GPU mounts, always try to avoid mounting your card that close to the glass, because you can have the same issue we're having here, not just because this is smaller form factor, but because the fans are up so close to the glass, you're not really getting good airflow into the card. So actually hit a maximum of around 87C throughout the test here. So it's definitely pushing some thermal throttle limits of this 2070 Super. Definitely don't need it that hot. Definitely gonna have some clocks dropping there to try to maintain, and this is a very overbuilt cooler for this Aorus card here, so the fact that it wasn't even able to keep up, so keep that in mind. Now if we had a smaller, maybe blower style cooler that was ejecting the air out of the back of the chassis instead, or even had, like I said, those two fans up top to help exhaust out, that would definitely help. We didn't test it in that configuration today because, like I said, we wanted to keep it stock as possible. So yeah, that about wraps it up for this. Like I said, we wanted to go over just a couple of those benchmarks there. Overall, it's a really solid case to build in. I love the quality of the case. I would definitely say if you're going to go more high-end components, I would highly recommend going with the Evo edition. Like I said, having that 240 AIO mount available up top would definitely help. Or like I said, if you're going to go more mid-tier on case this size because you prefer the smaller form factor as this one, like I said, definitely recommend slapping an additional two 120 fans up top, and then maybe even, like I said, getting that 120 fan down bottom. All right, so like I said, guys, we are going to be reviewing another small form factor case here coming in. We took apart the Novelo stack to actually build into this guy, and then we'll actually be doing another follow-up on one of Novelo's other cases, the Borg small form factor case. Like I said, if you guys want to check that out, drop a comment down below. Let me know what you want to see us test. We didn't do any gaming on this one today because we had that 3400G in here. But like I said, we will be dropping in probably either a 3600X or even 5600X and testing the Borg out. Since the Borg is built for a little more airflow in mind, we'll see what we can fit in that one. So if you guys have any questions about the Ophion Evo or the Ophion, I will drop links down below to let you guys check out Raijintek's site and where you can check these guys out. Again, overall impressed with the build quality of the case. Love the brushed aluminum look, love the rounded edges. It's a very clean looking case. I think they could definitely make a few improvements on airflow, but again, for form factors like these, not saying they don't always push for performance. Some kind of centralized around looks and trying to get it as compact as possible first, and then they can go over performance. It's a very minimal case. I mean, if that's your thing, definitely worth checking out. If you want something super minimal, and definitely look clean on your desk, especially if you don't need anything crazy powerful packed in there that's going to put out a lot of heat. This would be the perfect case for it. Or like I said, go with that Evo to get the 240 right up top to help cool your CPU, and just be mindful of what GPU you're going to put in to make sure you get a little more space in between the glass there. So I mean, if we had a smaller card or even a blower style card, it wouldn't be as bad on thermals if we were talking about something that would separate from the glass a bit. So again, appreciate you guys for stopping by, checking out the video today. Like I said, if you guys do have any questions, let us know. Drop them down in the comment below. Take it easy.